Okay, just wrapping this up for tonight. I'd like to post this video, but anyway, I think I might have a little problem here, and that being that I think I'm running. Here's a kind of a half of the assembly of this thing. This is the bracket that mounts to the firewall, and then this is the piece that connects to the bell crank on the throttle from the actual pedal, and then of course here's the cable. And then you can see the flex cable going down here. But here's the deal. I don't think I have enough actual travel in the bell crank by the time you add up the length of this and the length of this. I don't know. Maybe I'm working more into this than I need to, but it just seems like there's not enough travel to get there's not going to be enough travel left to get the throttle open. Anyway, I got to think about this a little bit, and maybe I'll call the guy at Ratco too. I don't know, but anyway, I'll try to get this posted tonight, and we'll follow up later as soon as I get this worked out. Thanks. Okay, now that I've installed that caps nut, you can see that I'm able to back the cable out quite a bit farther, maybe like another ½ an inch or so, and that'll give me plenty of room to maximize the throw of the throttle bell crank on the end there. So I think that's pretty much done. Now I have another slight modification I'm doing for the mounting of this bracket here to the firewall, and I'll show you that here in a second. So what I'm going to use instead of the nuts and bolts that came with the throttle, I'm going to use what's called a nut cert. It's basically a blind fastener. This is the tool that you use to attach them. I got this on Amazon. I think it was like $60. It comes with a nice case. It's got all the different dies here for either metric, or there's 3 SAE sizes also. This is the 1/4-20. This is what I'm going to use in the to replace those nuts. The nuts that I chose, since the kit came with a fairly good representation of different sizes, both metric and SAE. I went with the 1/4-20 nut cert. The reason being that the kit came with a 1/4-28 bolt, and so if we're just talking about a fine thread versus a coarse thread, and as you can see, I'm going to be using a lock washer and a flat washer, so I don't really think anything's going to be moving around too much. So I just thought I'd mention that. But there may be fine pitch nut certs out there, but I don't know if it's worth waiting around to get one. So I'm just going to use this. Okay, so let me talk about the drilling the holes for these nut certs. There's no instructions or recommendations in the data or the kit I bought that included a whole bunch of different nut certs. Half of them are metric, half of them are English or SAE. So the only looking on the net, I found that they recommend that you just drill the hole for the nut cert to fit in. So that's a little ambiguous, but so what I did is I measured the diameter of the nut cert here with my dial calipers, and it's 0.348. And that's inches. I'm just going to be talking in inches here. So my two choices in my trusty Harbor Freight twist drill set is an 11/32, which is 0.343, which is about 5 thousandths smaller than the drill. Than the nut cert. My next choice is 23/64, which is a 0.359, which I think is just too big. That's 11 thousandths larger than the nut cert. And, I take into consideration the fact that I'm going to be drilling the hole and not milling it, and I'm using a Chinese drill to start with. I'm probably going to have better luck starting with the 11/32 drill So basically that's what I'm going to do here. So let me get set up for that, and I'll check back in. Okay, well, it looks like the lucky winner was a 23/64. Fits like a glove. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and set up for crimping this thing, and I'll be back in a sec. Okay, I've started the fastener on the end of the thread. You get the idea. Basically, this goes all the way, you screw it all the way down, and then when you close the handles, it basically pulls the threaded stud in the center up and pulls the bottom of the nut up against the back of the sheet metal. You put the nutsert in the hole. So let me go do that, and I'll be right back. Wow, that is a tight fit. I just was able to barely get this thing down. It's really hard to see, I guess, since it's black with the blue car, but it's in. And now what I do is you basically unscrew it out of the crimp tool out of the nutsert with this knob here, and as if by magic, there's our fastener. Pretty sweet. It's in there pretty solid. So I just have to do the other one. I think I'm going to bolt the first one in to locate the starter hole for the second one, and then because I don't think that one's quite square, and we'll go from there. Okay, so I have the second nutsert in, and all I have to do now is just make sure I get that bracket bent correctly, or optimized at least. And then this half of the installation of the Ratco throttle cable will be done. Okay, I started to bend the bracket a little bit. It's a little bit farther away from the header now, but I need to go quite a bit more. I think what I'm going to... Hold on a second here. My light fell. So I think I'm going to do here is bend the bracket to where... I apologize, it's kind of hard to see, but to where the end of that ferrule is pointing at the top of the bracket, or the arm where it's supposed to connect to. I think that may solve a lot of my problems. So I'm going to just go slow, easy steps here, taking this off, bend a little bit, try it, and so we'll see how it goes. But this is the first pass. Okay, this may help somewhat. The bracket was pretty much straight, and you can see I've got a bit of a bend in it now. But what I need to do is start about here and turn this thing, I don't know, maybe about, I don't know, 20 or 30 degrees, to where right now it's pointing at 9 o'clock. I need to have it pointing at about 10 o'clock. So let me try that and see how it works out. Okay, this is starting to look a lot better now. You can see I got about, I don't know, maybe like an inch, almost an inch of clearance between the cable and the header. But I think what I'm going to have to do, if I can get this light to stay here, well, I need to get this ferrule here to where it's pointing directly at that. That I have to bend it right at the very end. I think I might actually bend it back a little bit because it's starting to hit that spring, and then just bend the very tip of it down. So let me try that. Okay, that's starting to look a little better. I think I still need to go a little more, but I need to bend it right at the very end, though, because I'm starting to run interference with the spring on the bell crank thing here. But I think it's getting there pretty good, and I'm getting much more clearance here on the header. So it looks like it. Okay, I think I have a pretty good shape on the thing right now. I'm going to try just knocking that stupid light down, but I don't know if you can see it, but this is the piece here. This is the cable that bolts in, or has a pin that goes into this guy, and it's aimed pretty well at it. The throttle goes about that far. One thing I also have to check is to see, I mean, is that going to be enough to open the throttle all the way? I hope so. So here's the final shape. It's quite a bit different than what I started out with, but it seems like it works out pretty well. The metal, as for thick as it is pretty easy to bend. So it wasn't too bad of a deal. So onward and upward. But anyway, now on to locating the other fitting over here, and then I can. Here's my cable still. I have to size this thing. I taped the ferrule on the end of it here so it wouldn't slide completely off, and I understand it's a nightmare to put back on. So anyway, progress, slow but sure. Thanks a lot. I'll be back when I get more done. Well, now I have the car back down on the ground. Well, it's been up in the air, and the front's been up for, I don't know, before Thanksgiving. It's kind of weird getting used to it again on the ground. Okay, so anyway, now I'm down to making a hole in my heat shield to run the cable through, and my 9-year-old grandson's always coming up with novel gifts. We've had Christmas, and he got me this wire set. Well, I'm trying to figure out what can I use to kind of plumb bob a line straight down, and lo and behold, here's some solid steel wire. So I'll just cut off a piece of this, straighten it out, and put it in the little ferrule and find my my hole center. Well, there's my center mark. I got to take the carburetors off, it looks like, to get to the hole to drill it. Oh well. You know, this is what I love about YouTube. Somebody says, oh, I got to take the carburetors off. And before you can have another sip of your adult beverage, there they are. They're gone. So anyway, here's my mark. And I'm going to drill up like an 1/8 inch pilot hole and then work my way up to the fitting. Okay, I have the fitting in the heat shield now. I just wanted to make a comment that you really need to have a carbide drill to go through stainless, as I discovered. The drills that I've had in the past are just these Harbor Freight titanium coated drills, and they just don't get it. Luckily, I had an 1/8 inch drill from a Easy Out kit that was carbide steel, and that just went right through it. I got my starter hole, and then I ran out of battery on a DeWalt electric drill going up in size enough to get the fitting in there, but at least it's in there. So next step is to mount this, the heat shield, back on the motor, and go ahead and start sizing up the cable. Okay, since I have the heat shield and everything up, I'm going to go in for a close-up of this, of the throttle end of the cable, just so you can see what it looks like. Okay, and then here's the other end with the ferrule on it, and that goes into that fitting right there. Geez, oh no, focus. Goes into that fitting right there. Okay, so here's the cable. It ended up being 14 inches long from tip to tip. So I think that'll work pretty good for this car, at least for Triumph TR4A. So next step is to put it together. Okay, so here's my outer shield or cable for the throttle. I'll cut the length. This is the little ferrule that they warn to not remove from the cable because you can't get it back on again, and I can see why, because this edge is kind of real. Well, it's a stranded cable shield that or jacket that's going to be pretty difficult to get back underneath this. So I think what I might do is mix up a little JB weld and just put a fillet around this just to keep these two pieces together if I ever have to take this off, because this will slide out of here, so that's no problem. I just don't want this to slide off of this, so I'll do that. Okay, so I've got a little bit of a fillet of JB weld there around the junction between the braided cable and the little ferrule on the end of it. So I think I'm just going to let this dry overnight, make sure it's good and hard, and then looks like I'll be able to put it all back together tomorrow. Okay, so it's the next morning. The JB weld looks like it's all cured up, so I'll start putting it back together. Okay, so now I have the cable itself is hooked onto the bell crank of the throttle there, and you know, looks pretty straight. I think the angle's going to be okay. Here's the other. This is the excuse me. The choke cable's getting in the way. Okay, so here's the other end of the cable. You can see it's quite long, so I have to adjust that length. So back to putting the carburetors back on. Okay, well there you have it. Let me do a little demo here. The throttle's open all the way. Works pretty well. So, oh, and obviously, you know, I did it with the heat shield instead of using the standard carburetor mounting bracket that comes with that kit. So, but anyway, it went real well. And there's a look at my ceramic coated header. That turned out really nice. So it's a typical, you start doing one thing, end up doing 2 or 3 more. So anyway, hope you enjoyed the my trials and tribulations here putting this throttle in. It wasn't really too bad, but anyway, I'll go ahead and post this now.